Hey there, welcome to Kafkin Park Chess. This is actually my very first YouTube chess video. So if you like the content, if you feel inspired by it, feel free to leave a feedback in the comments so I can improve for the next video to come. Now, for my first video, I decided to cover some lines which derive from the Rousseau Gambit. Now, the Rousseau Gambit is a very nice gambit which derives from the Italian game. I actually discovered it myself on YouTube a couple of years ago, thanks to the great content by Igor Smirnov, a grandmaster, which I can show here. It's really lots of very instructive and entertaining videos, and it's perfect to learn this very fun opening, and you can even learn how to refute the Rousseau Gambit, not only how to play it. And yeah, so if you want to learn the basics of the opening, I recommend his videos. My video is more about some positions which derive from a certain line in the gambit, and I want to share it with you because those lines are so fun. There's so many tactics, so many sacrifices, and it's like attacking chess, it's open positions, very imbalanced positions, and just a lot of fun to play. And the best thing is actually that the position is actually one where your opponent is actually thinking, I refuted the gambit, I know how to refute it, and I will win easily, I get a crushing position, but in fact it's actually you crushing him and not the other way around, which is so much fun. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. I got here a Lichess study, and in the first chapter I will show you how you get into the starting position, I mean the position where then it starts to branch out. So the Rousseau Gambit, as I told you, derives from the Italian game, e4, e5, then the knight comes out, you bring your knight out too, and then this bishop to c4, very popular opening, played very often, and that's why it's also very easy to get into the gambit. You will get many occasions. So the Rousseau Gambit is this move f5. It's a very aggressive move, like attacking white's pawn in the center, but on the same time, and that's why the gambit is quite dubious and it's refutable, is that you are weakening this diagonal, and you always have to take care of your opponent attacking your king via this diagonal. Yeah. Okay, so you play this move. Now there's several ways to go for white, and if you want to learn how to react to these moves, I recommend, as I told you, Igor Smirnov's content. And now the positions I want to show you derive from the move d4, which is actually according to the engines and also according to all YouTube videos about this gambit, is actually the best line. So the opponents who play this move are actually, or most often, quite prepared, because they kind of know the Rousseau Gambit and they know that this is like the best refutation of the gambit. And so the move I like to play in this position is actually pawn takes e4, and by taking the pawn you're also attacking the knight. So the knight has to move, and there's only one good move, which is actually to take this pawn, and in the same time the knight is threatening to go here with a fork on the queen and the rook. It's supported by the bishop, and so in order to prevent this you are supposed to go d5, blocking and in the same time attacking the bishop. So here is like the first, let's say, crossroads where it can branch out. There's actually two moves which are played very frequently in this position by white. In 40% of the games, white goes bishop b5, which is this move. And almost the same amount of times, it's 34%, it's this move, queen to h5 with a check. And actually one of those moves is very good and is like the refutation of the Rousseau Gambit, and the other is a blunder. And the one I showed second was this queen move, and this is actually the blunder. Hence, if you're black, is the move you want to see on the board. And this video is how to sort of punish this move and hence crush your opponent. Now, if you look at the position at the first glance, it seems pretty winning for white because your king is quite open, your queen is attacking, then there's the knight threatening all kind of nasty moves, the bishop is out, and yeah, you seem quite defenseless, but that's not the case. So now your opponent thinks he got you, you played like a dubious opening, he knows the refutation, the best move by the engines, and now he's crushing you. But now things will turn around pretty quickly. Okay, the first move is pretty obvious. You have to block the check with the pawn. Now most players will play this knight takes pawn, at the same time attacking your rook and threatening many discovered checks. I mean, they're actually threatening to take the rook with a discovered check by the queen. And actually you cannot take the knight, because otherwise you will lose the rook, because the pawn is actually pinned to the rook. But they miss one crucial move you have to counter this knight move, which is actually to move the knight to f6. And with this move you actually attack the queen. So if your opponent, let's say, just takes the rook, puts you into check, you can just take his queen and you win the queen. So the queen has to move, and in order to keep the pin on the rook, they need to stay on the h file. Let's say they move away, they just lose the knight. So they need to move away from the knight and stay on this file. And actually there's not so many squares available, because this is controlled by the dark square bishop and the light square bishops covers this. So there's actually just one square for the queen, which is to go here to h4. Now in these positions, in this position, you again have to know which move to play. Actually, it looks quite tempting to take the bishop, but actually it's not the move it's not the best move, but the best move is actually to take the pawn, threatening to go here and fork the king and the rook, which is another threat to the already existing threat of taking the bishop. And that's actually our starting position. And from here, white has about 4 moves which are played regularly. And I'm going to show you how you have to react to these moves. Now you can see the most often played move is actually dropping the bishop back here. In 46% of the players will play this move. Then the second most often played move is actually players who take your rook. Then castle is also pretty popular, about 11%. And then there's also this bishop to g5 move, which is the 4th move I'm going to cover. Okay, so in the first, let's say, chapter, we are going to discuss the second most played move, which is if white decides to take your rook. Now in this position, it's actually very simple. If they take your rook, then you're supposed to take this pawn with this check, with checking the king and forking the rook. Now the king, actually there's about 2 moves, or there's 4 moves, but they're pretty similar. I'm going to cover 2 king moves. One is if they go to d1, and this is actually, I mean, attacking your knight, but this is actually a blunder, because what you have to do is not taking the rook. That would be wrong, but the move you have to make is actually taking the bishop with a discovered check. And if they now think, okay, at least they can win the knight, they blunder checkmate in 1. King has nowhere to go, very nice checkmate. And it's not much better actually if they go here, because also here it's a checkmate in 1. Very nice. So not really a good move from white going here. So you might ask, yeah, okay, but what if they go here? Then it's actually, you have to do exactly the same. You take the bishop. So it's pretty easy to remember. Wherever the king moves, you always take this bishop. And the difference is that this time there's no discovered check. So now there's different moves white can play. One very bad move is to take the bishop out, like putting pressure on this knight, which is defended only once. But this blunders checkmate in 1. So that's a very bad idea. So maybe they notice the danger and they bring out their knight, covering this checkmating square. Now in this case, you just bring out your bishop, trying to remove the defender of the checkmating square. Now in this position they actually can bring out their bishop, because now the rook is covering this square, so you cannot checkmate there. And if they play this move, then you just take the knight, and at the same time you're actually defending your knight. Now if they take your knight, you take back with the queen. You're like trying to get in a queen to exchange queens, and it might look like a blunder because white can take this pawn, like forking your king and your knight. But if they do this, you can just block with your bishop, and then if they take your knight, it's actually very easy. You just bring your bishop back to safety, which was attacked by this pawn, and on the same time you ensure that there's no way of putting the rook on this file, so you're quite sure to be able to castle. Now they might pin your bishop. The next move you castle, and if they try to put more pressure on the bishop with the queen, there's a pretty easy move. You just move your bishop here, and now you might notice that this pawn is not protected, but it's a very poisoned pawn, because if they take it, you have this very nice move securing the king and the queen. Okay, you might say, okay, but this bishop is not protected. They can take it, yeah, they can, but if they take it, it's checkmate in 1. So this was like a skewer, and at the same time it was like a discovery for checkmate. Very nice lines, you see, and lots of fun. So let's go back to our starting position, which was this. We covered this knight takes rook. Now the next move we're going to cover is if they bring their bishop out right away. Pretty similar to the bishop move which we saw before, like putting pressure on this knight, which is currently only defended by our queen. So if they do so, actually it's a huge blunder. And in this case, you don't go knight takes pawn, but you take the bishop. That's the difference to what we saw before, where you were supposed to take the pawn. Now if they take the knight, your opponent might think, oh great, I got like a triple fork, hitting the knight, the queen, and also the rook in the corner. But this is actually checkmate in one, believe it or not. You go here, it's a check. The king has only 2 squares to go. If they go here, it's checkmate. And if they go here, it's checkmate as well. Pretty easy. So yeah, a triple fork, but a huge blunder because it's actually checkmate in 2. Really cool stuff. So you might say, okay, in this position, they notice the danger, and they notice that they cannot take this knight right away as long as their king is like here, vulnerable in the center. So they decide to castle. Yeah, why not? And taking the knight on the next move because it's still pinned to the queen. And yeah, so here there's actually a pretty cool silent move, which is this rook to g2 move. And the reason this move is so good, it's actually you're aligning the rook with their king through X-ray vision, and it needs to be pretty strong X-ray, because currently there's actually 3 of your opponent's pieces blocking the rook. Okay, most of your opponents will just take the knight, so this move is actually a knight sacrifice, and now your queen is attacked, and what you are going to do is actually sacking the other knight. Pretty cool stuff. Now you're actually giving a check, and at the same time you're forking king and queen. So if they just move their king, they're losing the queen. So they have to take your knight. And now you can see that suddenly the rook is almost checking the king. It's just a knight in the way, and actually your next move is to take the knight. Sorry, yeah, the king has to move, and now on the next move you just take the bishop back. So actually you got back the material you sacrificed. Now your opponent can go queen to e4, giving this check. You just block calmly. If they go here, you just bring out your other bishop, and on the next move you're going to castle, and you're perfectly safe. You're up a minor piece, and it should be an easy win. Okay, let's go back to the starting position again, which was this one. Now we're going to cover what happens if they castle in this position. It's like the next chapter. So let's say they castle, and as in the chapter before, when they castle, you're supposed to go rook g2, sorry, g8. And here it's pretty similar to what we saw before, except that the bishop is still on the starting square and not as before already here. So what you are going to do now, or what your opponent is probably going to do, they have to save either the knight or the bishop, because both are attacked. So if they decide actually to, let's say, to save the bishop, like you just take the knight, pretty easy, threatening again this nasty fork on the king and the queen, winning the queen in the end. So if they decide to get their knight into safety, for example by taking your bishop, then actually it's pretty easy, very nice fork, king moves, you take the queen. So the best move in this position is actually to save the knight, going here, covering this square, so this fork isn't possible. But now you just take the bishop, and how it might continue, you might bring out your bishop, threatening to take it. Then you move your knight here, attacking the queen. And so if they want to like save the queen and keep protecting the bishop, there's actually just one square, which is this one. And now here there's another pretty nice tactic. You can just take the bishop, and if they take back, you go bishop h6, and believe it or not, the queen is actually trapped, has nowhere to go. This knight controls this square, this square, this square. This knight is covering this square, and also this square, and this square is covered by the pawn, which is also joining into, it's like a teamwork queen trap. Yeah, they will lose the queen. No way to save the queen, and yeah, you actually win the game. So let's go back. If they think, okay, my queen is attacked, but maybe I can just counter-attack their queen here. So here there's another very cool tactic, which is just taking this pawn, luring the king kind of out, because if they take it, you can take the queen with check, which before was no check because the queen was here. And that's why your opponent has no time to get their queen back, because they're actually in check and they have to react to this check. So if they take, you just take the bishop back and you won the queen. Also here, pretty cool stuff, pretty cool tactics, pretty cool sacrifices, everything you want to see in a chess game. Okay, so let's get to the final chapter. Again, we're starting here. Till now we covered the castling, we covered this move, and the bishop to g5 move. Now the next move we're going to cover, and actually it's the most played move by white in this position by far. It's about 46% you're going to encounter this move, is if they just move back. And at first sight it perfectly makes sense. They're getting their bishop safe because it was attacked, and at the same time they're protecting this pawn which was attacked by the knight. Now here comes the thumbnail octopus monster octopus knight. You might have asked yourself, yeah, what kind of knight is that? And it's actually probably one of the best and strongest knights I have ever seen. And because it starts with this knight moving here to attack the queen. Now, as we saw before, this queen needs to stay on the h file, otherwise they will lose the knight because the pawn is not pinned anymore. So the only way to do it is to move back, and which is actually the only, let's say, safe place on this file, because this is covered by the knight and this is covered by the bishop, and they were attacked by this knight, so they have to move here. But you might notice that they walked right into a discovery, and so the knight moves back and it's a discovered attack on the queen. So if they don't want to lose the queen, they have to move away. The difference being that now also their knight is attacked twice, not just by this pawn, but now also by this knight. So let's say if they just move back where they were, they lose the knight like this. So let's say they move here, so they think, okay, my knight is attacked, but I can counter attack their knight, which is actually also pinned to this rook. But that's insufficient, because now our octopus monster knight just makes his final move and takes this knight, and by taking it, it's again a discovery, like a discovery protection of the other knight. Pretty nice stuff. So if you see, this knight just went crazy and actually moved 5 times, starting here to here to here, threatening this fork. Then it went here, threatening the queen, which was here, and then going here with a discovered attack on the queen and an attack on the knight, and finally they took the knight here. So it's like 5 knight moves, like this knight going completely crazy and destroying the whole army of your opponent, just actually alone. Pretty rare you see something like that in the opening. So now you met the crazy monster octopus knight. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to show you. As I told you, if you want to learn the Rousseau Gambit, just watch the YouTube videos by Igor Smirnov, by the Grandmaster, and yeah, feel free to leave some comments or some feedback in the commentaries. It was my first video, and I hope it was not the last one. Okay, thank you very much, have a nice day, and see you soon.